offline.
You read the title. We got 3 commander decks that are incredibly fun, casual decks that you can check out. Links in the description. That's the end of the video. I just cut it. I'm like, there you go. You're welcome. Thanks for the views. Appreciate you. I'll be the first to say it. When I build decks, I've got some flaws, and I'm willing to acknowledge those flaws. And I genuinely feel I have fixed a lot of my deck building mistakes of the past with these decks. I've had a critique that my land bases aren't the best. I think I've improved those. Had a couple critiques that the removal card draw mana ramp in the deck didn't feel like it synergized with the deck very well. And my mana curves were either top heavy or they had a big hump at the 3-drop section and it made them really awkward. So I think I've taken all those into account and I've crafted 3 incredibly fun, casual commander decks that you're gonna like. So be sure to like, comment, and subscribe if you do like it. Check out the channel for some more stuff. Throw me a buck over on Patreon and YouTube members, and let's hop into the first one. Deck number 1 is based around Hraesvelgr of the First Brood. Now this mono blue commander is 4 and a blue for a 5/5 flying vigilance ward 2. We love some built-in protection. When Hraesvelgr enters the battlefield, and whenever you cast a non-creature spell, target creature gets +1/+0 until end of turn and can't be blocked this turn. Now what are we normally gonna do with this deck? You're normally gonna run some like when it deals combat damage stuff. You're gonna make it unblockable with your Hraesvelgr. You're gonna run some control pieces, control the board while also making some of your stuff evasive and smacking face with it. Or you can go straight spellslinger, but without red. You're kind of missing a lot there. Here's where my head's at, okay? Whenever anything says non-creature, I immediately think of enchantments and artifacts. With this one being mono blue, I figured artifacts seem pretty good. And then my follow-up thought to that was, I'm sure there's a ton of stuff that scales in power with how many artifacts you control. Yeah, there is, and that's where we're gonna start, okay? So first piece of this deck, stuff that scales with artifacts in play, okay? We're gonna piece this together piece by piece. Stick with me. Stick with me here, you're gonna love this. Broodstar is 8 and 2 blue for a star affinity for artifacts, flying, whose power and toughness are equal to the number of artifacts we control. Brotherhood Vertibird is a 3-drop *4 flying, whose power is equal to the number of artifacts we control, and cruise for 2. Darksteel Juggernaut is a 5-drop ** indestructible, whose power and toughness are equal to the number of artifacts we control, who has to attack each turn if able. Filgry Attendant is a 2 and 2 blue *3 flying, whose power is equal to the number of artifacts. Master of Ethereum, again, power equal to artifacts, gives other artifacts +1/+1. Shambling Suit, power equal to the number of artifacts. One of the more pricey cards, if you're willing to throw down for this deck, is Simulacrum Synthesizer, being a 2 and a blue that scries 2 on ETB, and whenever you play another artifact with value 3 or greater, you make a 0/0 that gets 1/1 for each artifact you control. Urza makes that same 0/0 when it ETBs. You can also tap an artifact to add a blue, or pay 5 and spin the lottery. And then finally, Urza's Command, 2 and 2 blue, choose 2. Creatures you don't control get -2/-0 until end of turn. Create a tapped Power Stone token. Create a 0/0 that scales, or scry 1, draw a card. The first piece of the puzzles in... we did a puddle. So step 1's done and over with. Now we actually need a bunch of artifacts in play to make these creatures power scale. The first way we're going to do this in this deck is running a bunch of 0-drop artifacts, because not only are they going to put more artifacts in play to make our creatures bigger, just casting it is going to trigger our commander, and then we can use our commander, target one of our things that scales with the number of artifacts in play to make it unblockable this turn, bash face for pretty good amount of damage. So we run Astral Cornucopia, which could potentially just be a 3-drop, 6-drop, 9-drop mana rock, or we could just play it for 0. Claws of Gix is a 0-drop artifact, pay 1, sack a permanent, gain 1. Dark Sphere is a 0-drop artifact that you can sacrifice to prevent half the damage done by a source. Delif's Cone is a 0-drop artifact that you can sacrifice. If target creature you control attacks and is not blocked, you may choose to gain its power and life. Of course, we've got Urza's Bauble, Mishra's Bauble, Spellbook giving us no hand size, Tormod's Crypt being able to exile graveyards, Welding Jar being able to sacrifice to regenerate an artifact. That is a great way because it also, as I said, interacts with the commander. The second way that we're going to go wide with artifacts, obviously, you saw it coming, clue, food, treasure tokens. So a removal spell like Depths of Desire, being a 2 and a blue instant that returns target creature to its owner's hand and then makes us a treasure token, is just removal that helps us go wide with artifacts. Hornswoggle, love that name, is 2 and a blue that counters target creature spell, and then you make a treasure. Malcolm makes you a treasure whenever he deals combat damage. Nuka-Cola vending machine makes food tokens. Piper Wright makes clue tokens. Prosperous Thief makes treasure tokens. Spell Swindle makes treasure tokens. Tomio's Journal makes clue tokens. The Mechanist makes clue tokens. Turn into a pumpkin again is some removal that gives us a food token. And then also I found Mechan Assembler from Edge of Eternity that's pretty solid in this deck. Being 4 and a blue, 4/4, whenever another artifact you control enters, you create a 2/2 robot artifact. Yeah, so more artifacts when you play artifacts? Sure. On top of this, of course, we run the artifact lands. We've got Darksteel Citadel, Seed of the Synod, Treasure Vault. On top of this already really solid game plan, we run Cyberdrive Awakener to animate all of our treasure, clue, or food tokens. Tatsune Animator to do the same. And as we talked about, Simulacrum Synthesizer is an absolute unit in this deck. And Urza Lord High Artificer is always an absolute unit. If you want to take a look at the deck's card draw, mana ramp, removal, and board interaction, there you go, as well as the new and improved land base that I hope you like a little bit more, and 3 test hands to see if this is something you'd be interested in. Again, we got full deck list down in the description. With that, let's move on to fun casual commander deck idea number 2. So our second fun casual deck idea revolves around Olivia Mobilized for War, who is 1, a black, and a red for a 3/3 flying. Whenever another creature enters under our control, we may discard a card. If you do, put a 1/1 counter on that creature. It gains haste until end of turn and becomes a vampire in addition to its other types. This deck was super fun to make because along the way I realized how many different things interact with Olivia in super cracked ways, including the brand new Lorwyn Eclipsed mechanic, Blight, which is the main point of this list. If you don't know what Blight is, it's a brand new mechanic being introduced in Lorwyn Eclipse, and you can put a number of -1/-1 counters on your own creatures, normally for some sort of trade-off for a positive effect. With Olivia, these things are gonna still blight when they ETB and still give us their powerful bonuses and powerful effects they have, but Olivia will just add a 1/1 counter, which will get rid of one of the -1/-1 counters, making a lot of these blight cards way more potent. So that's obviously where we're going to start in this deck. We've got Blighted Blackthorn being a 4 and a black 3/7. Whenever this creature enters or attacks, you may blight 2. If you do, you draw a card and lose 1 life. Bogsliver Embrace is a 1 and a black sorcery that as an additional cost we can blight 1, exile target creature. Burning Curiosity is 2 and a red for a sorcery that you can blight 1 as an additional cost. You exile the top 2 and you can cast them until the end of your next turn. Champion of the Weird is 3 and a black for a 5/5. As an additional cost to cast this spell, behold a goblin and exile it. Exile a goblin you control from play or your hand. A lot of this stuff with Blight is a goblin, so I feel like you can pull this off a lot of the time. Pay 1 life, blight 2, target opponent blights 2. Activate only as a sorcery. When this creature leaves the battlefield, return the exiled cards to their owner's hands. Chaos Spewer is 2 and a hybrid Rakdos for a 5/4. When it enters the battlefield, you may pay 2. If you don't, blight 2. How about a Cinder Strike? 1 red, sorcery. As an additional cost to cast this spell, blight 1. Cinder Strike does 2, but if you blighted it, it deals 4. Dawnhand Dissident is a banger that's going in my Taval deck. Also great in here. 1 black, 1/2, tap it, blight 1, surveil 1. Tap it, blight 2, exile target card from a graveyard. During your turn, you may cast creature spells from among the exiled cards by removing 3 counters from among creatures you control. Oh, wouldn't you know, we have a ton of counters to remove. Douse and Dawnglow is 4 and a black to return something from your graveyard into play, and then blight 2. Dream Caesar, 3 and a black for a 3/2 flying. When this creature enters, you may blight 1. If you do, each opponent discards a card. Gristle Glutton, 1 and a red, 1/3, tap it, blight 1, discard a card, draw a card. Grub Storied Matriarch is 2 and a black for a 2/1 menace. When this creature enters or transforms into Grub Storied Matriarch, return up to 1 goblin card from your graveyard to your hand. At the beginning of your first main phase, you may pay a red to transform Grub into Grub Notorious Ante. Being a 2 and a 1 menace, whenever Grub attacks, you may blight 1. If you do, create a tapped and attacking token that's a copy of the blighted creature, except it has, at the beginning of your end step, sacrifice this token. You can pay 1 black at the beginning of your first main phase to transform it back. Or maybe Gut Splitter Gang being a 3 and a black 6/6. At the beginning of your first main phase, you may blight 2. If you don't, you lose 3 life. Requiem Hex being 1 black for an instant and as an additional cost, you may blight 1, destroy target creature with mana value 2 or less. If the spell's additional cost was paid, you gain 2 life. Scuzzback Scrounger, it's what I used to be called in high school. 1 and a red, 3/2. At the beginning of your first main phase, you may blight 1 and make a treasure token. Shadow Urchin is 2 and a hybrid Rakdos for a 3/4. When this creature attacks, blight 1. Whenever a creature you control with 1 or more counters on it dies, exile that many cards from the top of your library. Until your next end step, you may play those cards. What about the Sinister Gnarlback? 2 and a black, 0/4. At the beginning of your end step, draw a card and blight one. This one's a banger. Soul Immolation, also very good. 3 and 2 red as an additional cost to cast this spell. Blight X. X can't be greater than the toughness among creatures you control. Soul Immolation deals X damage to each opponent and each creature they control. Just some good board work. Rounding things off, we've got Sour Bread Ante, being a 2 and 2 red 4/3. When it enters the battlefield, blight 2, make 2 1/1 red goblins. And finally, Sting Slinger, being 2 and a red 3/3, pay 1 and a red, tap it. Blight 1, this creature does 2 damage to each opponent. So Olivia interacts really well with Blight, but there is a cost to doing her ability. You have to discard a card, so we do have some discard interaction and recursion. As far as the discard interaction is concerned, we've got Archfiend of Ifnir, being a 3 and 2 black 5/4. Whenever you cycle or discard something, put a -1/-1 on each creature your opponent controls. Yeah, pretty good. Of course, we got Bone Miser, 4 and a black 4/4. Whenever you discard a creature, make a 2/2, discard a land, add 2 black. Whenever you discard a non-creature non-land, draw a card. We also run recent standard staple Monument of Endurance, being a 3-drop artifact. Whenever you discard a card, choose one that hasn't been chosen this turn. Draw a card, make a treasure, each opponent loses 3. And as far as repeatable recursion is concerned, we run Oversold Cemetery, being a 1 and a black enchantment. At the beginning of your upkeep, if you have 4 or more creature cards in your graveyard, you may return target creature card from your graveyard into your hand. Being a 3 and 2 black enchantment, you choose Khans or Dragons when it enters. If you chose Khans, at the beginning of your upkeep, return target creature from your graveyard to your hand. And if you chose Dragons, each opponent loses 2 and you gain 2. We're picking Khans here. And then we also run Phyrexian Reclamation, being a 1 black enchantment, pay 1 and a black, pay 2 life, return target creature card from your graveyard to your hand. Oh, we're not even close to done, by the way. The amount of stuff that Olivia interacts with is insane. So let's move on to the Persist section of the deck, because entering with a 1/1 counter, if you could imagine it, is very good for a creature with Persist, because you can infinitely sack it and let it come back into play for as many cards in your hand as you're willing to discard. So we've got Lesser Manticore, being a 2-drop 2/2 as an additional cost to cast this spell. Discard a card, pay 4, it deals 1 damage to target creature. Persist. Murderous Red Cat, being a 2 and 2 hybrid Rakdos 2/2 with Persist, that when it ETBs deals damage equal to its power to any target. Persistent Constrictor, being a 4 and a black 5/3. At the beginning of each opponent's upkeep, they lose 1 life, and you put a 1/1 counter on up to 1 target creature they control. And it's also got Persist. Puppeteer Click, being 3 and 2 black for a 3/2 Persist. Flying, when this creature enters the battlefield, put target creature card from an opponent's graveyard onto the battlefield under your control. It gains haste, and you exile it at the next end step. And finally, Putrid Goblin, just a bear with Persist. So something with Persist, when it dies, if it didn't have a -1/-1 counter on it, it comes back into play with a -1/-1 counter on it. But thanks to Olivia, it'll enter with a 1/1 counter on it as well, which will cancel each other out, and you can sack it to persist it again, and keep doing that for as many times as you're willing to discard a card for Olivia's trigger. So some sack outlets are going to be pretty good in here too. We got Altar of Dementia to turn creatures into mill, Ashnod's Altar turning creatures into mana, Goblin Bombardment turning creatures into damage, and Woe Strider turning creatures into scrying. Moving on to the vampire package in the deck. Now this isn't a big package. I only run 3 vampires. I was a big critic on which vampires I let into my Olivia list. The first one being Captivating Vampire, being 1 and 2 black for a 2/2. Other vampire creatures you control get +1/+1. Tap 5 untapped vampires you control to gain control of target creature and have it become a vampire. Because if you'll remember, another part of Olivia's ability, on top of the 1,000 other things it does, is turns that creature that entered into a vampire. So this will not be hard to trigger at all. We've also got Cordial Vampire, being a 2 black 1/1 that turns every vampire dying into a 1/1 counter on all vampires. And we've also got Olivia's Wrath, that gives a -X equal to the number of vampires to all non-vampires. Pretty stacked. We also run a few Madness cards. I'm not really going to go over these ones because they're mainly a part of the removal and card draw package of the deck. But Madness is a mechanic where when a card with Madness is discarded, you can normally cast it for a much cheaper cost. So... And then finally, I didn't know where to put it. All will be 1. Yeah, that's in the list. It's absolutely correct. Whenever counters go on something, you deal 1 damage equal to the number of counters that were placed on that thing. I'm pretty sure, if I'm not mistaken, if something with Blight enters, it still gets the -1/-1 counters, and it still gets the 1/1 counter from Olivia. They just cancel each other out. So you will still be pinging for tons of damage in this list. But yeah, if you want to take a look at the full list, you can check out the description down below. But here you go if you want to take a look at the card draw, mana ramp, removal, and board interaction, as well as the new and improved mana bases I hope you guys liked, and 3 opening test hands to see if this is something you would be interested in. Again, links down below to all the deck lists. And let's move on to the third and final fun casual deck idea of the video. So the third and final fun casual commander deck idea is a bit of a work in progress, I'm going to be honest, so I'm going to need a little bit of community help here. If you've got any suggestions for this list, let me know. It's based around Svella Ice Shaper. Svella is 1 a red and a green for a 2/4. Pay 3 and tap it. Create a colorless snow artifact token named Icy Manalith. With tap, add 1 mana of any color. Pay 6 a green and a red. Tap it. Look at the top 4 cards of your library. You may cast a spell from among them without paying its mana cost. Put the rest on the bottom of your library in any order. 90% of the time with this card, you're just running a Timmy deck. You're playing giant creatures for free, or you're just making a bunch of manaliths and hard casting them for free. Whichever way you want to go about it, you're playing giant creatures in this deck earlier than they should be played. Not if I'm involved, buddy. The first place my brain went was, what if we did a spellslinger deck? I thought of all of the amazing spellslinger cards that are like 6, 7, 8, 9 plus mana that really don't get played that often because they cost so much. In Svella, you could actually get away with playing those and then pop the hell off. So let me explain. Let me give you the rundown here. This is a casual for fun deck. The most out of all 3 of these for sure, alright? I understand it costs 8 mana to activate that ability. Commander games go long in cash. I don't know what to tell you. Let me just try to sell you on this, all right? You play Svella, the next turn you play a land, you make one of your icy things. You can use Svella way quicker than you think you can, and then start hitting some cool shit like Sphinx Bone Wand. 7 colorless for an artifact. Whenever you cast an instant or sorcery spell, you may put a charge counter on Sphinx's Bone Wand. If you do, Sphinx's Bone Wand deals damage equal to the number of charge counters on it to target creature or player. Stick with me, I've got spells to interact with this stuff. This is just where I'm starting. How about Rite of the Dragon Caller? 4 and 2 red, enchantment, all of our instants and sorceries become 5/5 red dragons with flying? Sure. How about Keeper of Secrets, which might be the best card in this deck? 5 and a red, 6/4, first strike, haste. When you cast a spell from anywhere other than your hand, Keeper of Secrets deals damage equal to that spell's mana value to target opponent. Yeah, our commander's going to be casting off the top of our library, and you'll come to find out, if you haven't already, there's a lot of big spells in this deck. How about Inferno Project? 6 and a red, 0/0 trample that enters the battlefield with X/1/1 counters on it, where X is the total mana value of instants and sorceries in your graveyard. Similarly, Erratic Cyclops is 3 and a red for a 0/8 trample that gets +X/+O whenever you play a spell equal to that spell's mana value. How about Arcane Bombardment? 4 and 2 red enchantment. When you cast your first instant or sorcery spell each turn, exile an instant or sorcery card at random from your graveyard. Then copy each card exiled with Arcane Bombardment. You may cast any number of the copies without paying their mana cost. I'm still not selling ya? Naya Soul Beast, 6 and 2 green, 0/0 trample. When you cast it, each player reveals the top card of their library and it enters with X/1/1 counters equal to the total CMC. Nahiri's Wrath, 2 and a red, sorcery, discard X cards. It deals X damage to X different creatures or planeswalkers, where X is the total converted mana cost of the discarded cards. Even something like Levan Cultist of Timeout is insane, being 2 and a red, 1/3. Whenever you cast a non-creature spell, target creature gets +X/+O, where X is that spell's mana value. We've got Azuri's Predation, 5 and 3 green for a sorcery. For each creature your opponents control, create a 4/4 green Phyrexian Beast creature token. Each of those creatures fights a different one of those creatures. How about Volcanic Vision? 5 and 2 red for a sorcery. Return target instant or sorcery card from your graveyard to your hand. Volcanic Visions deals damage equal to that card's CMC to each creature your opponents control. Gross. How about Mizzix's Mastery? 3 and a red sorcery. Exile target card that's an instant or sorcery from your graveyard. For each card exiled this way, you may cast a copy of it without paying its mana cost. Exile Mizzix's Mastery, or it has Overload for 5 and 3 red, which could be disgusting in this deck. How about a Brass's Bounty to make a treasure token for each land we control? The real gravy for this deck is you are cheating into play massive instant and sorcery value engines to then just start spell slinging off and killing opponents with these massive, super strong value engines. As you can see, all of our removal are instants and sorceries, so they will interact with all of those engines. A big chunk of our ramp are instants and sorceries, and same goes for our card draw and board interaction. A few additional powerhouse cards I want to talk about in this list though. Raiding Schemes is very good in here, being 3 a red and a green for an enchantment. Each non-creature spell in your hand has Conspire, which means if you tap 2 untapped creatures that share a color with it, you can copy that spell. How many creatures are we running in here? We're running 12 creatures. Most of them are red. A huge chunk of our spells that we're playing are red. I feel like this is good. Maybe it's not. Let me know what you guys think of that down below. I think Double Visions is insane, being 3 and 2 red. Whenever you cast your first instant or sorcery each turn, you may copy that spell. And wouldn't you look at that, Svella says cast without paying its mana cost. Very nice. As well as some ways to double Svella's ability, because I feel like that's where this gets really nice, because paying 8 to cheat like a 6 or 7 drop into play is nice. You're almost losing out on mana some of the times. It's nice to be able to get that from your top 4. But if you're able to dump like 1 or 2 extra mana into that ability and then get another activation of of it, that's when the value really starts hitting. So we've got stuff like Battle Mage's Bracers to double it, Lithoform Engine, Peter Parker's Camera, Return the Favor, or Rings of Brighthearth. All of which will help us double either one of Svella's abilities, which is going to be really nice. I told you it was a weird one, but there you go. If you liked any of these 3 decks and you are considering building them, let me know down in the comments. If you really want to show your support, you can go ahead and leave a like, comment, and subscribe. And if you're a real OG, you could go ahead and become a $1 member over on the Patreon or YouTube members. I don't know. I'm not making you. I'm not forcing your hand or nothing. Let me know what you would add to any of these decks, which one was your favorite, and I'll see you guys on Sunday. Peace.